Now our last speaker is Jeffrey Mills.
Okay, hello. I'm going to be talking a bit more about specialists and generalists and kind of one of the possible factors that means that they can coexist and how we can predict their coexistence. So if you consider all types of environments, including macroscopic ones all the way down to microbial ones, they're all going to have a number of environmental gradients that characterize that environment. So that can be salinity or pH or the amount of light. And these gradients can either be smooth or they can be kind of choppy. So if in kind of this environment you have like this sort of environment here and then a sharp change, and then maybe here you have like a smooth change from snow into trees, and then you have all sorts of gradients going on in these columns. And if you're going to be a creature living in this environment, then you need to make a choice whether to specialize or generalize. So if you're going to specialize, you're going to concentrate on a very small area of that gradient and really only be able to compete on that sort of environment. Or if you're going to be a generalist, then you're going to be better at encompassing like the entire gradient. But that comes at a cost, because if you're going to be a specialist, then you're going to perform extremely badly in different types of environments. If you're going to be a generalist, then you're never going to kind of win in any particular type of environment. So there's this trade-off. Jack of all trades is a master of none. And coexistence of generalists and specialists is widely observed in lots and lots of different types of environment. So the question is kind of, how can we predict the coexistence of generalists and specialists, and what are the factors that go into that? So we're specifically concentrating on sort of the shape of the environmental gradient, whether it's smooth or whether there's a lot of discontinuities in it. So ecological theory and some experiment kind of says, if you just consider homogeneous and heterogeneous environments, if you've got a completely homogeneous environment, then it's going to really make sense to specialize in that environment, because there's no point in generalizing. If you don't really specialize on that specific thing, then something else will come and outcompete you. So an example is kind of like a salt lake. The salt concentration is just the same all throughout the lake. Alternatively, if you've got a highly heterogeneous environment like an estuary, so kind of the sea and the rivers kind of mixing together and lots of different flow rates going on, then it makes more sense to generalize, because if you try and specialize, then maybe there's not going to be enough of your particular environment to sustain your population. So the question is kind of what happens between these two extremes. So if you have just specialists being supported in this kind of environment and generalists being supported in this sort of environment, what happens in the middle? And another way of kind of looking at this, and this is sort of a bit like patch size, you can talk about the environmental grain. So if it's highly heterogeneous, then that's very fine grained, and then you can increase the grain size going up to, well, extremely coarse grained if it's a homogeneous environment. But in between that, you have kind of like patches of homogeneity that are large enough to support specialist populations. So in order to investigate this, we make a model, which is as simple as it can be because I'm a physicist. So it's an agent-based model. You've got n individuals in the system that compete to get resources from n sites. And there's a number of different species. There's a number of individuals in each species. So here's just an example of, here's a site and this kind of environmental gradient going from one extreme to another extreme, and different species occupying each site. So they can occupy it for one time step before they have to compete for the next generation. And each site has this environmental value E. That's the important thing. So each species is characterized by two traits. It's niche breadth, which I call sigma, and its niche preference, so the ideal bit of environment that it wants to live in. So then each individual competes for each site, and then it competes based on this fecundity function that is this big long equation, but basically just means that the niche breadth and the niche preference form this Gaussian, which says, okay, if you're competing for a site here, then what value does your fecundity function take there? And if you're a specialist, then you're going to do extremely well in this little bit of the environment, but very, very badly elsewhere. Whereas if you're a generalist species like C, you're just kind of competing not very well anywhere, but okay everywhere. And the area under the Gaussian for each species is the same, so there's no kind of systematic advantage for being a specialist or a generalist. So we have this model, and all parameters are kind of kept the same apart from the shape of the environment that we run it on, which is the thing that we're kind of investigating. So we make this grained environment to let this simulation run on. So it's quite simple. Each one of these dots is one environmental site where an individual can get some resources for one time step. And if it's very fine-grained, then it's just one smooth gradient, so there's no kind of patches of sites, but there's a very wide range of possible sites to access. And then as you make the environment more coarse-grained, you start to get like little homogeneous patches of identical environments, and then you make it more coarse-grained and those patches get a lot bigger. So the results of this that we get out, we're mostly looking at this sigma distribution, which is the distribution of specialists and generalists, and this is made just by binning all of the individuals according to their niche breadth value. So in this particular environment you get a large amount of generalists and not many specialists, and then similar when you turn up the grading a bit, and then at some point suddenly the generalists all die and then you just get specialists. So it's a transition. If you do lots and lots of simulations of increasing grain size, then you get this kind of very, very, very generalist, and then suddenly a drop, and then you get specialists. And then we're kind of quantifying this by using the median sigma, which just means taking the middle individual in this distribution and plotting that here. And if you look at the niche breadth distributions for the points kind of surrounding the transition, you see it really is a transition there. So you get the same distribution right at the beginning up until right just before the transition, and then basically the same distribution all the way up to the end of the transition. And then just in the middle you actually get this coexistence. And then another thing that you can investigate is the diversity, because that's a thing that it's quite easy to actually investigate in an experiment. So then you get this kind of big peak in overall diversity when this transition happens, which is quite interesting that you get that. So that's quite cool that you get this kind of little transition. But then maybe you're thinking, well, this doesn't seem particularly realistic. It's a very, very idealized physics model with its kind of identically sized patches everywhere and no randomness at all. So in order to rectify that, we make a slightly different model, which is still different types of grained environments, but then there's kind of some more stochasticity in it. And we do this basically by picking the gap size between each environmental site by this equation, which basically just means when rho is very small, then this gradient is very smooth. As you increase rho, then the environment gets a lot more choppy. So you still have these kind of areas of sort of homogeneity, but it's kind of a lot more random and it's a lot less idealized. So then the results of this is you still get this kind of movement from generalists to specialists, but you get a much, much wider range of coexistence in parameter space in the middle, which is quite nice. So then if you look at the niche breadth distributions, you see, like a nice range of coexistence here, before going into just specialists surviving, as in the other case. And then if you plot the diversity, again, you see this kind of, the diversity goes up as the coexistence, is there, which is quite nice. So then just looking at kind of these two models, this kind of simple idealized version and this more stochastic, more realistic version, and you see this kind of similar pattern. You see coexistence only happens when the grain is intermediate, when it's not too big and not too small, and you see this increase in diversity when coexistence is happening. So these are my two conclusions. Intermediate grain means coexistence. Coexistence means higher species diversity. And there's been a number of experimental studies that kind of say similar things, but I'll just concentrate on this one by Vanel in 2011. So they did an experiment with bacteria in different environments, and they used temporal graining rather than spatial graining, as I have done. So their version of coarse graining is to put the bacteria in one certain environment for like a long length of time, so maybe like 10 days. And then fine graining, they cycle that environment very fast. So maybe like a cycle of like 1 or 2 days. And then they kind of find the same thing. So when you cycle it in an intermediate grain, that's when you get diversity. So that's quite nice, it kind of agrees with that. And also that just using a more natural model means more coexistence. So it's important to kind of not just use entirely idealized models in this, for this question. And that's it. So thanks very much.
Time for one question or two. So what does your model imply about the loss of diversity? If you lose diversity in a population, does that affect the ratio?
So how do you mean if there was previously diversity and then there isn't diversity?
Yeah, as a result of some environmental perturbation. The elasticity of the model.
So we haven't actually investigated kind of changing the environment with time, although that's something that we're hopefully going to do. But I think it would probably show that I'm not sure if I'm really answering your question, but if you were changing the environment a lot, then that would mean more generalists would live there, and I think that would be a lower diversity because only a few generalists could survive. But I'm not sure if I'm really answering your question. But.
So I couldn't quite follow all the details of the model, but do you have the mutations in this model that change the mean values? Or?
Yeah, so another parameter in the model is also this kind of, we don't have mutation, but we do have this immigration rate. So new species are kind of coming in to make sure that one species doesn't fixate. So that kind of acts as kind of a mutation.
So then my next question is how that impacts the results. Did you look at different rates?
Yeah, we did look at different rates. It doesn't. I mean, obviously, if you turn down the immigration rate, then the overall diversity will always go down. But in terms of how it impacts the kind of specialist generalist coexistence, it doesn't really impact it that much. So that's why I basically didn't mention it at all, because I'm just concentrating on the environment. But yeah, that's the thing.
Okay. So let's thank the speaker and all of the speakers.